My CEO slid into my car and murmured, "I'm into you, and I feel like you're into me too." Rajiv drove home in his old, slightly scratched sedan, the hum of the engine blending with the distant sirens and honking cars. It had been a long day at Novatech, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the city. Deadlines, code, and endless meetings had drained him, but driving home gave him a rare sense of calm. He adjusted the rearview mirror, tugging at a stray hair that fell across his forehead. A sigh escaped him, not from tiredness alone, but from the weight of the invisible pressures that came with being a middle-level engineer in a company where brilliance often meant burnout. His car navigated the traffic with practiced ease, a small bubble of control in a chaotic world. That calm, however, shattered in a moment. A sleek black car swerved in front of him, slowing down as if intentionally cutting him off. Its surface reflected the city lights like liquid metal. Rajiv's first instinct was to brake, but before he could react fully, the door on the passenger side slid open. And there he was, the CEO of Novatech, Armin Vera. Rajiv blinked, unsure if he was dreaming. Armin's calm, perfectly tailored suit, and an expression that always seemed just a little too composed, now sat in the passenger seat of Rajiv's modest car. "Mind if I join you?" Armin asked, his voice soft but carrying a weight that made Rajiv's hands tighten on the steering wheel. Rajiv's brain scrambled. Sure, I guess," he stammered, though internally his thoughts raced. Why him? Why now? And how the hell did he even open my car? Armin leaned back, his eyes scanning the road ahead with an almost predatory focus. "Long day?" he asked, though the question sounded more like an invitation than small talk. Rajiv tried to keep his cool. "You could say that." For a few moments, silence filled the car. The city passed by in streaks of neon and steel. Rajiv felt the tension thickening, as if the air itself had become heavier. Then, unexpectedly, Armin murmured, "I'm into you and I feel like you're into me too." Rajiv's mind froze. The words didn't make sense, yet they did. But this wasn't a romantic novel. This was real life, or something that felt like it had leapt from fiction into his sedan. He kept his eyes on the road, trying not to make eye contact. Armin leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a murmur. "I know you think this is strange, but sometimes the unusual path is the only way forward." The words were cryptic, but Rajiv caught the hint of urgency beneath them. Armin wasn't just making small talk, he was sending a signal. Something was happening, something big. Rajiv adjusted his grip on the wheel. I don't understand," he said cautiously. "Why are you here?" Armin's eyes met his in the rearview mirror, sharp and calculating. "Because I need you, Rajiv. I need your mind, your instincts. There's a situation that requires someone who thinks differently, someone human." The word human caught Rajiv off guard. In a city dominated by artificial intelligence, drones, and automated systems, that word had weight. Humans were considered unpredictable, yes, but often dismissed as inefficient. Yet here was Armin, a man usually untouchable and untethered, asking for exactly that, the unpredictability of a human mind. Rajiv swallowed hard. A situation? What kind of situation? Armin gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "A dangerous one. And one where time is critical." The traffic thickened as they drove through downtown. Rajiv kept his eyes on the road, but his mind raced. "Dangerous, critical, why me?" "You're thinking too much," Armin said softly, as if reading his thoughts. "Sometimes action is better than hesitation. Sometimes humans can see solutions that machines cannot. You'll see." Rajiv didn't have a chance to respond because the black car that had brought Armin suddenly accelerated ahead and disappeared into the traffic like a shadow. He was alone with Armin again. The car felt smaller, tighter, and heavier with the unspoken tension. "So, what do you want me to do?" Rajiv finally asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Armin's gaze shifted to the side window, where neon signs reflected in the glass. "I want you to come with me, For tonight at least, just trust me. I promise I'll explain everything, but you must act fast. Trust. The word sounded simple, but in Rajiv's mind it was a mountain. Trusting anyone was difficult. Trusting someone like Armin, untouchable, brilliant, unpredictable, was nearly impossible. And yet, something in Armin's presence demanded it. Rajiv hesitated. Then slowly he nodded. Okay, I'll go with you. A brief smile flickered across Armin's face. It wasn't the calm, controlled smile he usually wore at board meetings. This one was sharp, almost human. Good, he said. You won't regret it, but remember, the moment we step outside this car, things change. Rajiv swallowed again. The city around him seemed suddenly alien, every sound amplified, every shadow suspicious. He felt as if the ordinary world he knew had slipped away, replaced by a tense, high-stakes game. The car stopped at a quiet intersection. Armin gestured toward a narrow street that Rajiv had never noticed before. Turn here and follow my lead. Rajiv did as told, curiosity and fear warring inside him. As they drove, Armin finally began to speak in more detail. He explained a project at Novatech, one Rajiv had only glimpsed through internal reports, a classified AI initiative with the potential to disrupt communications worldwide. But Armin's tone suggested something darker than mere corporate ambition. There are forces, Armin said carefully, who want to misuse this technology, and if they succeed— He didn't finish the sentence, but Rajiv understood. Disaster. Global chaos. Rajiv's mind spun. All his life he had been a small cog in the vast machine of corporate life. But now, in this cramped car with the CEO, he was being asked to step into a role that felt impossibly large. Why me? He asked, his voice quiet but firm. Because you think differently, Armin said. You see patterns where others see noise. You improvise when machines fail. And most importantly, you care. That makes you human. And sometimes, humans are the only ones who can save other humans. The words struck Rajiv deeply. For a moment, he saw himself not just as an employee, but as a crucial piece in a dangerous puzzle. Fear didn't disappear, but it sharpened into determination. They drove on, leaving the familiar city lights behind. The hum of the engine became a rhythm, syncing with Rajiv's racing heart. He didn't know what awaited them, only that tonight would change everything. Armin's gaze returned to him, steady and piercing. Remember, Rajiv, he said softly, almost as if sharing a secret, sometimes the world doesn't need the strongest. It doesn't need the fastest. It needs the human. And with that, the car merged into the darkness of the city outskirts, heading toward unknown danger and uncharted challenges. Rajiv gripped the wheel tighter, his mind sharp, his instincts ready. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was clear: the ordinary world he had known was gone. And the human inside him, the part that adapted, imagined, and endured, was about to be tested like never before. The car hummed softly as it moved along the empty outskirts of the city. Rajiv's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his mind racing. The tension in the vehicle was thick, like the air before a storm. He stole glances at Armin, who sat beside him with that calm, unreadable expression. But behind the CEO's composed face, Rajiv sensed urgency, an invisible weight pressing down, demanding attention. Finally, after a long stretch of silent driving, Armin spoke. "We don't have much time," he said. His voice was steady but serious. "What I'm about to tell you, it's not for anyone else. Not for the board, not for the media, and certainly not for your coworkers." Rajiv swallowed. "I'm listening." Armin reached into the briefcase beside him and pulled out a small, sleek device, glowing faintly with a blue light. "This," he said, "is the core of Project Atlas." Rajiv leaned forward instinctively, curiosity and caution mixing. He had heard whispers about Project Atlas, Novatech's top-secret AI initiative, but he had never seen it. The device was small, no bigger than a tablet, but the energy it seemed to radiate was undeniable. "What does it do?" Rajiv asked carefully. It can control and optimize networks worldwide, Armin explained. Power grids, communications, transportation, all of it. In the right hands, it can save lives, prevent disasters, even help rebuild cities faster than ever before. But in the wrong hands, he didn't finish the sentence, but the threat was clear. Rajiv felt a chill. Wrong hands, Armin's gaze darkened. There are people who want to misuse Atlas, competitors, criminals, even rogue factions in other countries. They want to create chaos, profit from panic, or take control of critical systems. The car's engine hummed louder as Rajiv absorbed the gravity of the situation. He had always known Novatech was powerful, but this was something else. The responsibility, the danger, it was enormous. "Why me?" Rajiv asked again, his voice quiet but firm. Armin turned to him, eyes intense. "Because you see patterns others miss. You improvise, you think creatively under pressure, and most importantly, you care about what's right. That makes you human, and sometimes only a human can save humans." Rajiv exhaled slowly. The weight of the words pressed down, but instead of fear, determination grew. For the first time, he felt that his skills, his perspective, truly mattered. Before he could respond, Armin's comm device beeped softly. A holographic screen appeared in front of him, showing a network map with blinking red signals. "Someone's trying to access Atlas remotely," Armin said, voice low but urgent. "We need to secure it now." Rajiv's heart raced. "How do we do that? Isn't it, a super advanced AI, can it handle itself?" Armin shook his head. "Not this time. Atlas is powerful, but it reacts to logic and algorithms, predictable, and predictable is exploitable. That's why we need human unpredictability, your unpredictability." The car took a sharp turn onto a hidden service road. Rajiv followed carefully, the tires crunching against gravel. He could feel adrenaline coursing through him. This wasn't a simulation. This was real. Lives were at stake, maybe even the balance of power in the world. They arrived at a small, unmarked warehouse surrounded by high walls and security cameras. Armin exited first, moving with confidence. Rajiv followed, every step cautious. Inside, the warehouse was sleek, modern, Novatech's secret operations hub. Screens lined the walls, displaying streams of data, code, and maps. Several engineers worked quietly at consoles, typing with rapid precision, their eyes glued to the glowing displays. "Rajiv," Armin said, "this is where we fight back. Not with weapons, not with armies, but with ideas, ingenuity, and human instinct." Rajiv nodded. The hum of machines, the glow of holographic screens, the tension in the room, it all felt like a battlefield. Armin led him to a console at the center. "I need you to do something only you can do," he said. "Trace the intrusion, find the weak points, predict their next move. And remember, no AI can anticipate the human mind the way a human can." Rajiv sat down, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Lines of code scrolled faster than he could read, but he didn't panic. He started methodically analyzing, thinking in patterns, looking for inconsistencies. His mind, trained in logic and creativity, began to map the intrusion. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Rajiv's focus sharpened. He felt the thrill of the challenge, the unique rush that came from knowing that his decisions mattered more than any automated system. He traced the intrusion to a remote server on the other side of the city. The attackers had tried to hide their tracks, but human intuition spotted the pattern, the hesitation, the repeated sequences, the subtle errors that no machine would make. Armin watched him quietly. "You're doing something no algorithm could do," he murmured. "You're thinking like a human, unpredictable and flexible. That's why you're here." Finally, Rajiv found the core of the intrusion. He executed a countermeasure, a carefully improvised patch that rerouted access and created a digital maze for the intruders. The screens flickered as red warnings disappeared, replaced by green confirmations. Armin clapped once, softly but firmly. "Well done. That's human brilliance. Quick thinking, creative problem-solving, unpredictable. Rajiv leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. We stopped them. For now, Armin said. But this is only the beginning. They'll try again. And when they do, we need to be ready. Rajiv realized then that the night was far from over. The city beyond the warehouse walls was quiet, but danger was everywhere, invisible and waiting. Every system connected to Atlas was a potential battlefield. And their advantage, human creativity, intuition, and courage. Armin moved closer. Rajiv, there's more. The people behind this intrusion, they're not ordinary hackers. They're highly skilled, dangerous, and well-funded. They know Novatech systems better than most employees. That's why we need you to stay sharp, think fast, and act decisively. They'll come again. And when they do, we need to be ready to outthink them. Rajiv nodded. Fear still lurked in the corners of his mind, but determination had taken root. He had faced deadlines, complex code, and corporate politics, but this was different. This was life and death. And he knew that only his human mind, flexible and unpredictable, could meet the challenge. They worked through the night. Rajiv improvised defenses, created logical traps, and predicted patterns that AI might miss. Armin coordinated resources, guiding him with insight but never giving direct orders. Every decision came down to Rajiv's creativity, his choices, and his understanding of human behavior. By dawn, the immediate threat was neutralized. The intrusion had been stopped, the system secured. Rajiv felt a mix of exhaustion and triumph. He had done it. He had faced a challenge that no machine, no algorithm could handle alone. And in that moment, he understood the truth behind Armin's words. Humans were extraordinary when they combined intelligence, intuition, and courage. Armin placed a hand on his shoulder, a rare gesture of genuine acknowledgement. "You did well," he said. "Not because of the code, not because of the machines, because of you. Your mind, your choices, your humanity." Rajiv looked around at the glowing screens, the humming machines, the engineers who trusted him now more than ever. He realized that this was bigger than a single project or a single night. It was about proving that humans, unpredictable and creative, still had power in a world dominated by machines. And as the sun began to rise, casting golden light across the city skyline, Rajiv understood that this night was only the beginning. The threats were far from over. But for the first time he felt ready, not just to react, but to lead, to improvise, and to fight with the greatest tool humans had: their own minds. The morning sun spilled golden light across the city, reflecting off glass towers and illuminating the bustling streets. From above, the city looked peaceful, orderly, and predictable. But Rajiv knew better. Beneath that calm surface lurked chaos, hidden threats, invisible networks, and enemies that could strike at any moment. He sat in the back of a black SUV, not behind the wheel this time. Armin drove, his focus sharp, eyes scanning the roads like a hawk. Rajiv had spent the night in Novatech's secret hub, analyzing data, improvising defenses, and creating traps that could fool even the most advanced AI. But Armin had made it clear: the attackers would return. And this time it would be more personal. "Where are we going?" Rajiv asked cautiously, his voice breaking the silence. "To a place they won't expect," Armin replied. His tone was calm, but there was an edge of tension. "We need to get ahead of them. If we wait for them to make a move, we'll always be behind." Rajiv nodded, gripping the edge of the seat. The weight of responsibility pressed on him again. Last night had tested his mind, but today promised to test everything: speed, intuition, and courage. The SUV exited the main roads, cutting through narrow alleys and industrial zones. Rajiv noticed cameras on almost every corner, drones hovering silently above, and sensors embedded in walls and streetlights. It was a city alive with technology, and every inch of it could be a threat. Armin parked in front of an unremarkable warehouse. The building looked abandoned, but Rajiv had learned by now that appearances could be deceiving. "This is our forward base," Armin said, stepping out. "It's temporary, but it gives us space and privacy. We'll monitor the attacks from here and act before they escalate." Inside, the warehouse was stark but efficient. Several engineers from Novatech were already at work, their faces tense but determined. Large screens displayed network maps, intrusion alerts, and AI predictions. Rajiv felt a thrill run through him. This was the battlefield now, and his mind was the weapon. Armin turned to him. "We've traced the attackers to a coordinated group. They're skilled, organized, and relentless, but they lack human intuition. That's where you come in." Rajiv's stomach tightened. "How do I stop them?" "You anticipate," Armin said simply. "You improvise. You think like they would, but then you do something they would never expect. That's the human advantage." Rajiv nodded, sinking into a chair with multiple screens before him. Lines of code scrolled rapidly, red alerts flashing sporadically. He began analyzing patterns, looking for inconsistencies, predicting the next steps. His mind worked quickly, identifying potential weak points in the attacker's strategy. Hours passed. The warehouse was alive with activity. Engineers typing furiously, screens flickering, alarms beeping occasionally. Rajiv focused on predicting the attacker's moves, creating countermeasures that would slow them down or redirect their efforts. Then suddenly an alert flashed in bold red. The intruders were attempting to access Novatech's core server directly. "They're moving faster than we expected," Armin said, his voice calm but sharp. "You have to block them now." Rajiv's fingers flew over the keyboard. He created digital barriers, rerouted the server access, and set up a series of traps designed to confuse and mislead the intruders. Every line of code was carefully calculated, yet improvised. Human logic, intuition, and creativity shaped his actions. Minutes passed like hours. Rajiv felt sweat on his forehead, his pulse quickening. He was aware of every second, every flicker of the screen, every subtle clue that might indicate a change in the attacker's strategy. Then the intrusion adapted. The attackers were clever. They had studied AI patterns and could anticipate automated defenses. But Rajiv anticipated them in turn. He didn't act like a machine. He acted like a human, unpredictable, flexible, and willing to take risks. He executed a daring countermeasure, a digital maze designed to trap the intruder's access point. If they tried to proceed, they would hit a loop, wasting precious time and revealing their strategy. Armin watched silently, impressed. "That's it," he said. "No AI could have thought of that. Only a human mind could improvise this way." Rajiv leaned back slightly, exhausted but exhilarated. The intruders' progress stalled. They were trapped in the maze, scrambling to find an escape. For the moment, Novatech's systems were safe. But Armin's expression remained serious. "Good, but this is only the first wave. They'll adapt and they'll come back smarter. We need to be ready." Rajiv nodded. Fear lingered, but it had transformed into focus. He had learned something important. Human intuition could outperform machines, but only if combined with courage, creativity, and quick thinking. Suddenly, another alert flashed, this one on the city-wide network map. Multiple intrusions were occurring simultaneously. The attackers were splitting their efforts, testing multiple points at once. "Divide and conquer," Armin muttered. "They're trying to overwhelm us. Rajiv, you need to prioritize." Rajiv's mind raced. He assessed the threats, quickly identifying which ones were decoys and which ones were genuine attempts to access critical systems. He directed the engineers to reinforce certain points, while he focused on the most dangerous intrusion himself. Time seemed to compress. Every decision counted, every action mattered. Rajiv felt the familiar thrill of being in the center of a challenge that demanded every ounce of his intellect. He was no longer just an employee, he was a strategist, a protector, a human advantage in a world dominated by technology. Hours later, the intrusion stopped. The attackers had retreated, their efforts foiled by Rajiv's improvisation. The warehouse was quiet now, the hum of computers filling the space. Engineers rubbed their eyes, stretched, and exchanged tired smiles. Armin turned to Rajiv, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did well," he said. "Not because of machines, not because of systems, but because of you. Your creativity, your intuition, your humanity. That's what saved the day." Rajiv felt a mix of exhaustion and pride. He had faced a challenge that no AI could handle alone, relying on his own mind and instincts. He realized something profound. Humans were not obsolete, not replaceable. When used wisely, their unique qualities could outmatch even the most advanced technology. As they left the warehouse, the city gleamed under the morning sun. It looked peaceful, ordinary, but Rajiv knew the truth. Threats were everywhere, invisible and relentless. But he also knew the power of human ingenuity. Armin glanced at him. This was just the beginning. "The next wave will be stronger, faster, smarter. But now we know something important. Humans can still win." Rajiv nodded, a determined spark in his eyes. He had stepped into a world where danger was constant and stakes were high. But he also understood the unique advantage he possessed, the ability to improvise, to think unpredictably, to act decisively. And with that advantage, he was ready to face whatever came next. For the first time, Rajiv felt a deep sense of purpose. The ordinary life he had known, the routines, the deadlines, the corporate pressures, had faded into the background. Now, he was a vital part of something far greater, a living proof that human creativity and courage could overcome challenges even the most sophisticated machines could not. And as the city woke to another day, Rajiv understood one truth: being human was not a weakness. It was a power, and tonight the world would see just how far that power could go. The warehouse was quiet now, but the air still carried the tension of recent battles. Rajiv leaned against a console, rubbing his eyes. His mind was sharp despite the fatigue, analyzing the patterns from the previous night's attacks. Armin paced slowly, deep in thought, as the morning sun streamed through the dusty windows. "Rajiv," Armin said finally, breaking the silence, "we need to talk about who is really behind these attacks." Rajiv straightened. "I thought it was just hackers or rival corporations trying to get Atlas." Armin shook his head. "It's more complicated than that. The attackers aren't just after the technology, they're after control, influence, and power. And someone is framing me, making it look like Novatech is a threat when we are actually trying to protect the city." Rajiv's stomach twisted. "Framing you?" "Yes," Armin said, pulling up a series of files on a holographic screen. "These intrusions are too coordinated to be random. Someone wants to destabilize Novatech and make us appear responsible for a disaster. If they succeed, they gain global leverage." Rajiv leaned closer to the screen. Lines of code, financial records, and intercepted communications scrolled rapidly. He could see the careful orchestration, the fingerprints of highly skilled operatives who understood both technology and human behavior. This is huge," he said. "How do we stop them?" Armin's eyes met his. "By thinking like them, predicting their moves, and acting faster. By using human creativity where machines cannot. That's why you're here." Rajiv nodded, determination sparking again. He had faced intrusions, fought against time, and saved Novatech systems once. Now the stakes were even higher. This wasn't just about technology, it was about truth, integrity, and human judgment. Armin led him to a secure console in the center of the warehouse. "We've traced some of the intrusions to a rival corporation, Vectra Dynamics. But there are also independent actors, rogue agents, and others we haven't identified yet. They're organized, resourceful, and they're counting on predictable responses. That's why we need to be unpredictable. That's why we need human intuition." Rajiv's mind worked quickly, analyzing the data streams and connections. He saw patterns, hidden relationships, and potential weak points. Each detail added a piece to the puzzle and his confidence grew. "We can set traps," he said, "redirect their attention, confuse their systems, and make them reveal themselves." Armin nodded. "Exactly, but we also need to understand their motives. Why would they frame us? What is their end goal?" Rajiv considered it. "Power," he said finally. "Control. If they make Novatech look dangerous, they can take over Atlas and use it for their own benefit. They'll manipulate systems, economies, communications, everything." Armin's expression hardened. "And that's exactly what we cannot allow. Atlas was created to help humanity, to protect cities, lives, and networks. If it falls into the wrong hands—" He paused, letting the weight of the words settle. Rajiv understood. This was no longer just about code or corporations. This was about safeguarding the future. "Here's what we'll do," Armin continued. "We divide our team into two groups. One group strengthens Atlas's security, preventing intrusions. The other group, led by you, will trace the source of the attacks, anticipate their next move, and expose the masterminds. We act preemptively, not reactively." Rajiv felt the surge of responsibility. Leading the human counterattack was daunting, but he also felt alive, energized. This was his element: problem-solving under pressure, thinking creatively, and using human intuition to outsmart enemies. Hours passed as Rajiv worked with a small team. They traced communications, cross-referenced financial records, and analyzed digital footprints. Every pattern, every anomaly, every misstep by the attackers became a clue. Rajiv used both logic and instinct, predicting moves before the intruders even acted. Then, suddenly, a breakthrough. Rajiv spotted a series of connections between the intrusions and an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of the city. The intruders had made a critical mistake, leaving a digital signature that only a human mind could interpret. "They're here," Rajiv said, pointing to the holographic map. "They're operating from this complex, and they've underestimated human analysis." Armin smiled faintly. "Good work. Now we know where to go. But we must be careful. They're dangerous, organized, and prepared for countermeasures." Rajiv nodded. Fear lingered, but it was tempered by clarity and determination. He had faced threats before, but now the stakes were personal. The attackers weren't just trying to steal Atlas. They were trying to destroy trust, create chaos, and manipulate the world. They prepared quickly. Engineers fortified Atlas's defenses while Rajiv, Armin, and a small tactical team geared up to confront the intruders at the industrial complex. Rajiv's heart pounded as he reviewed the plan. Every step was calculated, yet flexible. The human mind could improvise, adapt, and overcome. Machines could not. The drive to the complex was tense. Rajiv studied the surroundings, noting cameras, drones, and potential obstacles. The attackers had prepared traps, but humans could anticipate, improvise, and respond in ways machines could not. When they arrived, the complex loomed large and silent. The air felt heavy, charged with anticipation. Rajiv felt a mix of fear and excitement. This was the confrontation they had been building toward, the moment when intelligence, intuition, and courage would be tested. Inside the complex, the team moved carefully. Shadows stretched across walls, computers hummed in hidden rooms, and subtle alarms indicated the presence of the intruders. Rajiv led the way, analyzing patterns and predicting enemy movements. His human intuition guided every step, every decision. Suddenly, a group of intruders appeared, caught off guard by the team's unexpected approach. Rajiv acted quickly, improvising a distraction that allowed the team to gain the upper hand without confrontation. They moved silently, securing the complex and exposing the intruders' plans. Hours of careful maneuvering revealed the full scope of the conspiracy. Vectra Dynamics, a rival corporation, had been orchestrating the attacks, but they had outside collaborators, rogue agents, and highly skilled hackers. The plan was to destabilize Novatech, make Armin appear guilty, and seize Atlas for their own power. Rajiv's heart raced. "They're trying to control the city," he said. "All of it. If we don't act fast, they'll succeed." Armin nodded. "And that's why humans are needed. Machines cannot anticipate creativity, intuition, or courage, but humans can, and we will stop them." With careful planning and quick thinking, Rajiv led the team to neutralize the intruders' systems, trace financial transactions, and gather evidence to expose the masterminds. Every move relied on human ingenuity, unpredictability, and courage. By the end of the day, the warehouse team had secured Atlas, traced the attackers to their headquarters, and prepared to reveal the conspiracy. Rajiv felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had witnessed firsthand the power of human intuition and creativity, and how it could overcome even the most sophisticated technological threats. Armin placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've done more than I could have imagined," he said. "Your mind, your instincts, your courage, this is why humans still matter. This is why we can overcome even the greatest challenges." Rajiv nodded, understanding the weight of the words. The night had been long, the challenges immense, but the human mind had proven its worth. Machines were powerful, but humans, creative, courageous, unpredictable, were unstoppable when united with purpose. As they looked over the city from the warehouse, the sun setting behind the skyline, Rajiv realized that the battle was not just against technology or corporations. It was against the limits of expectation, the predictable patterns that others relied on. Humans could think differently, act decisively, and overcome challenges in ways no machine could replicate. And for the first time, Rajiv felt not just responsibility but pride. He was human, and in that humanity lay strength, courage, and the power to change the world. The real fight was coming. The rivals would strike again. But now Rajiv and his team were ready. They had learned, adapted, and anticipated. And above all, they understood one unshakable truth. The human mind was the ultimate weapon. Night had fallen over the city, but the skyline was alive with lights, glowing like a network of stars reflected on Earth. From above, it looked calm, serene, but Rajiv knew better. The quiet was a mask. Threats lingered in the shadows, in unseen servers, in hidden networks. Tonight, everything would come to a head. The SUV moved silently through the outskirts, carrying Rajiv, Armin, and a small tactical team. Their destination, the headquarters of Vectra Dynamics, the rival corporation orchestrating the attacks on Atlas. Rajiv's heart pounded, his mind alert, every sense heightened. The stakes had never been higher. Failure tonight wouldn't just cost corporate secrets, it could destabilize the city, perhaps even the world. Armin glanced at him. "This is it, Rajiv. All the preparation, all the analysis, it comes down to this. Are you ready?" Rajiv nodded, gripping the edge of his seat. "I'm ready. We've prepared, we've anticipated, now we act." The building rose before them, massive and imposing. Lights flickered in the windows, shadows shifting as if aware of their approach. Rajiv felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. He had faced intrusions, intruders, and near disasters before, but this was different. This was the enemy's stronghold. Every decision, every action tonight would count. They entered through a hidden side entrance, guided by blueprints and reconnaissance data. Inside, the headquarters was a labyrinth of corridors, surveillance cameras, and silent security systems. Rajiv led the way, his mind mapping every possibility, predicting every response. His human intuition guided the team more than any machine could. Suddenly, a digital alarm blared. Intruders within Vectra Dynamics had detected movement. Rajiv quickly analyzed the pattern of the alert. "It's a trap, but I can redirect it," he whispered, typing rapidly on a portable console. The alarm's path shifted, confusing the intruders and buying the team precious seconds. Armin gave a small nod. "Good. Humans still have the edge." They reached the control center, a vast room lined with servers, monitors, and encrypted terminals. The intruders were there, surprised to see the team so prepared. Rajiv's eyes scanned the room, noting their positions, the systems they were protecting, and the vulnerabilities they had overlooked. "They're trying to cover their tracks," he said softly. "But they've underestimated human unpredictability." With a plan forming instantly in his mind, Rajiv gave silent signals to the team. They split into coordinated movements, disabling power to sections of the room, creating distractions, and isolating the intruders. Every action relied on timing, intuition, and improvisation. Machines could predict patterns, but humans could break them. Rajiv approached a terminal, his fingers flying over the keyboard. He initiated a counterhack, reversing the intruders' access and exposing their plans in real time. Alarms and lights flashed as systems began to shut down, leaving the intruders scrambling. "You're too late," Rajiv said calmly, though inside his pulse raced. "Your plan is failing." The lead intruder, a tall, sharp-eyed figure, glared at him. "Who are you? How did you?" Rajiv smiled faintly. "I'm human, and that's your mistake." He executed the final step of the countermeasure, a digital maze that trapped the intruders' access permanently. Every system they had relied on for secrecy, control, and manipulation was now under Novatech's observation. The evidence of their conspiracy was clear and undeniable. Armin moved quickly, coordinating the extraction of data and securing the servers. "Excellent work," he said, glancing at Rajiv. "You anticipated, improvised, and acted decisively. This is why humans matter." Rajiv felt a surge of pride. He had relied on logic, intuition, creativity, and courage, and it had worked. The intruders' plans were thwarted. Atlas was secure. The city's systems remained under safe control. But the night was not yet over. One last challenge remained. The intruders had planted a final trap, a failsafe designed to corrupt Atlas if triggered. Rajiv approached the core system, analyzing the code. It was complex, elegant, but flawed, predictable to anyone who understood human logic. "This is it," he murmured. "Time to finish this." He worked quickly, methodically, improvising a solution that neutralized the trap without triggering the fail-safe. Lines of code shifted, algorithms bent, and systems stabilized. The final threat was gone. Armin placed a hand on Rajiv's shoulder, genuine respect in his eyes. "You did it. Not just with skill, but with intuition, creativity, and courage. The human mind is the ultimate tool." Rajiv exhaled deeply, the tension draining from his body. He looked around at the secure servers, the exposed intruders, and the team working efficiently to lock down the building. Everything was in order. For the first time in days, he felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The city outside seemed peaceful once more, lights reflecting off buildings, traffic flowing normally, people unaware of the danger that had passed. Rajiv realized then the truth. Humans, with their creativity, adaptability, and courage, had prevented a catastrophe. Machines were tools, but human minds were the decision makers, the unpredictable variable that could outsmart even the most sophisticated AI. Armin smiled. "You've proven something tonight, Rajiv, that humans are not obsolete. That our ingenuity, our unpredictability, and our moral compass are invaluable. That's why we can face challenges no machine can overcome." Rajiv nodded, pride and humility mixed within him. He had been thrust into a situation far beyond his previous life, yet he had risen to the occasion. He had trusted his instincts, relied on his intelligence, and embraced the unique qualities that made him human. As dawn approached, the team exited Vectra Dynamics headquarters. The city awoke slowly, unaware of the battle that had unfolded in its shadows. Rajiv looked at Armin, who regarded him with a rare, approving smile. "We did it," Rajiv said quietly. "Yes," Armin replied. "But remember, this is only the beginning. There will always be threats, always challenges. But humans, when united, thinking creatively and acting decisively, will always have the edge." Rajiv took a deep breath, feeling the morning air fill his lungs. He felt alive, alert, and ready. The ordinary life he had known, the deadlines, the small victories, the routines, was gone. In its place was a new understanding. Humans were powerful not because of machines, but because of their minds, their courage, and their ingenuity. He glanced at the city skyline, golden light touching the tallest towers. Somewhere in the vastness of the urban sprawl, lives were continuing, unaware of the danger that had passed. But Rajiv knew, and that knowledge gave him a quiet satisfaction. Humans had prevailed not through force or automation, but through creativity, intuition, and courage. Armin placed a hand on his shoulder one last time. Tonight, humanity won, and you were at the heart of it. Rajiv smiled faintly. Then we're ready for whatever comes next. Together, they watched the city awaken. Lights flickered, streets filled, and life continued. And amidst it all, Rajiv understood the enduring truth. Humans, with their imagination, adaptability, and bravery, could face any challenge, overcome any threat, and shape the world in ways no machine ever could. For the first time in a long time, he felt a quiet pride in being human. And in that moment, he knew that no matter how advanced technology became, no matter how complex the threats, humanity, clever, creative, and courageous, would always have the final word.